Before we begin, yes, I am wearing a Batman t-shirt for a Superman video. Blame DC for caring more about Batman and not Superman. Superman has had maybe one of the most tortured cinematic runs for a character as beloved as him. Following the release of Superman 2 in 1980, it's been a 45-year run of bad sequels, divisive reboots, and failed crossover movies. Regardless of how you feel about these movies, it's hard to deny that none of them have lived up to that original Richard Donner film, and no actor has been able to match the charm and screen presence of the late Christopher Reeve. Well, unless you're a Zack Snyder fan.
You had an amazing actor who embodies the role, and you fucking slapped him in the fucking face!
So when the announcement came that James Gunn was taking over the production at DC and would be writing and directing a new Superman film, everyone got understandably excited. Gunn has made personally my favorite MCU films, has a clear love and understanding of comic books, and a unique style that stands out compared to other filmmakers working in this genre. However, he had an uphill battle. He had to inherit an entire failed cinematic universe, contend with the pressure of having to appeal to new fans as well as winning over toxic Snyder fans, establish a whole new universe of superheroes to care about, and then above all else, make a good Superman film that lives up to the legacy of the first two, something that has not been done since 1980. So, how was it then? It's good. It's really good, actually. But I didn't love it like I wanted to. Superman 2025 is the first film in the series in a long time that I can confidently call a good film. Superman is hard to adapt because he's been reinterpreted so many times it's hard to add your own spin to the character as well as say anything new with him. That's why when they made Man of Steel, they just resorted to basically making him more realistic and more like Batman. That and Zack Snyder doesn't like Superman, but that's an entirely different video. James Gunn leans into these elements. Instead of retelling the origin story, we're thrown straight into the middle of this Superman story as he's already been Supermaning for 3 years and just lost his first battle. Instead of completely subverting everything you know about Superman, Gunn wears his influences on his sleeves, borrowing heavily not just from the comics and animated series, but also using the John Williams Superman theme and using the opening credits from the classic Superman films. The film also does what Marvel realized it needed to do with Captain America. Instead of straying away from the fact that the character is a bit of a Boy Scout with a heart of gold, they lean into that and put him in situations that try to break his values. This Superman is so pure it actually hurts. The way he talks, his music taste, his relationship with Lois, and always wanting to save people and help people regardless of circumstances. He even risks his life saving a squirrel in a massive battle with a kaiju monster. He's so wholesome, and David Cornsweet plays him so well that you completely buy it. He truly is Superman in this movie, and for my money is the only actor who has truly matched the energy of Christopher Reeve while not necessarily surpassing him. But the movie makes him insecure as well. When he gets confronted about the lengths he's willing to go to save every life possible, he gets defensive and even a little bit insecure in his heroism, which is pushed by Lois, which is maybe the best scene in the film. He even admits to reading some of the stuff that is written about him online and feeling bothered by it. Superman is pure, but to the point where he could be a bit childish and even a bit naive to the consequences of his actions. It really goes a long way in making this Superman feel human. He still feels like this man with godlike powers, but he still feels human, he still feels real. It is a really well-written version of the character, and one that isn't at all invincible either. He gets his ass kicked in this movie, and there are several moments where he isn't at full power and needs to heal. He feels very vulnerable and human, but in a way that feels very true to the character of Superman. The same could be said for the rest of the cast. Rachel Brosnahan plays a great Lois Lane, most of the supporting cast bring their A-game, especially with Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen, Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor especially is great. Hoult is terrific at playing sleazebag characters, and this film is no exception. Luthor is perhaps the most conniving, petty, and jealous in this version compared to any other version depicted on live-action film. He still feels like a threat to Superman while also being silly and conniving at the same time. Dude is such a hater in this movie, he literally doxes him, calls him a groomer on live television, and even has an army of brainwashed monkeys writing hate tweets on Superman.
Soon, they'll have written the greatest novel known to man. Let's see. It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey!
A+ hater. It's all in all a really compelling Superman film. So why don't I love it? Well, a couple of reasons. For one, while I love the choice to skip the origin, we kind of missed the first chunk of the story. The film opens on Superman retreating to the Fortress of Solitude to heal after losing a battle for the first time. The only reason we know this is because of the opening title text explaining how there have been metahumans on Earth for the last 300 years, Superman is the most powerful metahuman and he had crashed on Earth 30 years ago, and that this Superman just lost his first fight. So, I like the first two parts of that text. The rest of it, not so much. Those first two lines are perfectly fine, nicely setting up this new universe. That last line, though, feels like something we should have seen to fully understand and get invested in this new Superman's plight. I feel like Gunn wanted to start the film with him feeling vulnerable and hurt with his crashing into the snow, but at the expense of properly setting up this world and this version of Superman. As the film progresses, you gain a deeper understanding of who this Superman is and become more invested in him. However, for the first few minutes, this film relies on you to fill in the gaps based on your familiarity with other versions of the character. It's a smart gamble on James Gunn's part, as everyone knows who Superman is in his origin, but one I think he overestimates. Just because your audience is familiar with Superman in pop culture does not mean that you don't get to include a first act or give us a frame of reference for why we should care or be invested in this Superman's struggles. This film puts Superman through the ringer, but we don't see this Superman at his highest, so we feel for him when he begins to be broken down and tortured by Luthor. Maybe he could have opened the film with that scene of him crashing in the Arctic, then we flash back and see the events leading up to it, and later continuing the story once we reach that scene again. That might have been more effective. Apparently, the film was initially written to be split up, with title cards stating Day 1, Day 2, etc., showing that we're just seeing a few days in the life of Superman. I think that would have helped a lot with making that choice feel more personal and less sloppy. If the idea is supposed to be, oh, you see all these different days and chapters in Superman's life, and you're just seeing this little glimpse of it, I think it would have helped with the idea of, A, we don't see the beginning of this Superman story, and B, it just feels like another Superman story, like you're kind of thrown in the middle of it. So I think kind of having that element or that title card would have made that choice to skip the origin and skip the opening battle feel a lot more purposeful. Because in the final film, you kind of need to play a little bit of catch up a little bit or kind of project whatever you want to onto this Superman in order for it to work. Speaking of which, I felt as though there were maybe a few too many characters. The film avoids feeling like an overstuffed mess, but it's right on the edge. Introduces Superman, his Earth parents, Kryptonian parents, Lois, Lex, a pocket dimension of imprisoned characters, the Justice Gang, and the entire staff of the Daily Planet all in one film. It's a lot to throw into one movie, and even as a diehard DC fan, I was struggling to remember some of the names and faces unless it was explicitly spelled out by one of the characters. Lastly, I don't know how I fully feel about the cinematography. Gunn and his DP Henry Bram have done some great work together on the Suicide Squad and the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but I'm kind of less impressed on their work on this film and Guardians 3. The over-reliance on both films to shoot handheld with the Panavision Primo 70mm lenses can be visually interesting, giving it a nice wide-angle look, but it can feel very kind of floaty and disorienting in a way that I don't think the filmmakers intended. It can work sometimes, but I found that method of shooting a bit more distracting in this compared to previous James Gunn films. Not going to complain, though, about them shooting the red digital cameras, though. Though I'm very biased because that's what we shot on for the film I directed. Shameless plug. So yeah, I really like this movie a lot, but I wanted to love it. It's one of those films where I just really wanted to love and take everything in all at once, and while I like it, for all those aforementioned reasons, I just kind of struggle to fully love it or say it's the best of James Gunn's DC films, or even Marvel, superhero, whatever you want to call it, one of his films. But I think what's really special about this one is that, and the reason why I truly feel like it works and I feel more confident about this film being great and holding up really well on repeated viewing, unlike, say, Superman Returns or Man of Steel, is that it fundamentally gets what makes Superman a great character. Superman is a ray of joy and hope and a beacon for the world, and those movies should reflect that. The joy and all the different characteristics he employs is just fundamentally so pure in Superman, and no film for me has been able to really capture that since those OG Christopher movies. Even Superman 4 gets this right, for as bad as that one gets. This one, unlike Superman Returns, which makes Superman a creep and kind of a father, really terrible father, and then Man of Steel, which turns him into a mopey prick, and then all the Zack Snyder sequels that turn him into a lazy Jesus metaphor, which he's not. He's a Moses metaphor. There is a difference. this film really gets what makes the character Superman work. And also, in part, through the themes of the movie, is fundamentally at the core of it an immigrant story. Superman crash lands down to Earth, is treated as an alien and a foreigner to all those around him, and it's him learning and trying to teach the world who he is, and for the world to learn and embrace him. And it's not only expressly stated in the character Superman, but even the themes of not Israel and not Palestine war in this movie. Like, Hawk Girl literally kills definitely not Benjamin Netanyahu. Hopefully none of this gets this video monetized. YouTube, please. I would love you if you didn't do that. And that's also another strange element to the film, is the political allegories, where I don't know if it tonally works, but given the fact that no piece of media does even want to touch any of that subject matter at all at any length whatsoever, I'll take what I can get, honestly. And he also did a very similar thing with the Corto Maltese in the Suicide Squad film, so I guess I'm okay with it there, so I'll be okay with it here. It's a little ham-fisted, it feels a little tonally out of place with the rest of the movie, but if you want a Superman that was like plugged into the real world and could feel more connected, plugging him in the middle of a real metaphor for an allegory for a real ongoing war and conflict is a good way to show how Superman would fit in the real world and not in the clunky way that it was portrayed in Batman vs. Superman. In fact, there's a lot of elements of this where Superman still feels like the strong, hopeful, optimistic character of the comic books, but he does feel plugged into a world that both more reflects the real world, but also feels much more zany and comic booky. This feels much more like a James Gunn comic book film in line with this Guardians movies. It's wacky, it's cosmic, it's got a really great sense of humor, it's got a banger soundtrack, all that good stuff that you like from James Gunn. The one thing that is a downside, though, is the score. While they do use the John Williams theme, it's kind of used minimally and not super effectively in the way that I might have wanted it to. It's there, but it's not played at full blast or full march, and thus it kind of feels like either put the Superman theme in there or don't. Kind of just commit to one or the other. I feel like there was an in-between version that they could have committed to really have made that work and really make it pop. Like, even the end credits, as I mentioned earlier, are in this film, are a recreation and homage to the Richard Donner movie, but they play punk rockers over it as opposed to the John Williams theme in the Superman March, which feels like a missed opportunity, but I like the end credits needle drop in that film at the end, so I'm okay with it. So yeah, overall, we finally got a good Superman movie. It's very me thing to even get a good Superman movie and still find a way to complain about it, but I had the highest of high expectations for this. This was probably my most anticipated movie to come out this entire calendar year, and I wanted to love it, and instead I just really like it. Though, unlike some of the other previous Superman reboots like Man of Steel or Superman Returns, the more I think about it, the more I sit with this movie, the more I actually do end up liking it. I like what they did with the character. I like how they set up this world. I like all the different supporting cast members. I like the tone and the vibe of it. I like how comic booky and unabashedly silly it is while also taking itself seriously. It reminded me in the same way that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were made, where you would have these silly comic book elements and dialogue and costumes, but the film takes the world and the stakes seriously so you can actually feel invested. It's the contrast between, say, the OG Ghostbusters and the 2016 reboot of Ghostbusters. I know, I'm sorry. It's just a really well-made film that clearly understands what makes Superman tick. I think James Gunn gets occasionally too cute with it and does get in his own way occasionally with some of the writing in this film. Like I said, I think skipping the first act was kind of a weak choice, but overall, this is easily the best Superman film we have gotten since the Richard Donner classic, and it just falls just short for me of Richard Lester's cut of Superman 2. So overall, great stuff. I really love it. This film gets the character of Superman. That's why this works, and it feels true to him. If you pluck the Christopher Reeve version of the character into this film, the narrative would work the same, and vice versa. If you pluck David Cornswell and put him in the OG Superman film with Chris Reeve, he would also work for that. They feel true to the character of the comics, and that's all you can really ask for. Oh, and it's a lovely homage to All-Star Superman from the comics. I read this before I went to go see the movie, and boy, I'm glad I did, because good read. Recommend people actually read the damn comics instead of just watching the movies. 2, yeah, it's not at all like the story's not the same as this one, but honestly, give this a read as well as a couple other issues I'll throw up on the screen right now. So yeah, man did his homework when it came to this, is all I'm saying. So I'm stuck in between giving this a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. So screw it, let's just give it an 8. Thank you all for watching so much, and take care.